when I'd gone for a walk here at Findhorn again, and I come back with a very pretty pebble. There are lots of beautiful stones around, and I thought I haven't attuned to the being of a mineral. And as a mineral kingdom in our classification is of a lower nature than the animal and the vegetable kingdom, I thought I'd get a sort of very unevolved and angelic being. So I was expecting a sort of a monkey being when I tuned into this pebble, and instead I got the greatest being I'd ever contacted. It stretched across the universes. And I called it the cosmic angel of stone. And again, I'd like to share with you this one more message, that the words that I translated in from this cosmic angel of stone. Yes, I whom you have contacted and concerned with vastly more than your planet. For I contain or am connected with mineral life existing in various stages throughout creation. Nature is full of paradox, in that as you seek contact with what you consider a lower form of life, you in fact contact a more universal being. The mind of man codifies and formulates, which is within its right and purpose, but forgets that all is one, that God is in all, and that basic substance, seemingly most devoid of sensitive consciousness, is held in its state of existence by its opposite, a vast consciousness, too vast for you to do more than sense its fringes and know that it extends beyond your present imagination. You realize, too, that dense matter is influenced in its makeup by stellar energies. It was the beauty of this particular stone which drew you to me. Beauty is of God. Beauty is working out in all levels. Consciousness of beauty brings you into oneness with any part of the universe. You are contained in it just as I seem to contain universes within myself. The more you appreciate beauty, the more you are linked universally. It is good to seek it on high levels, for then your consciousness is expanded. You feel right now that you can only look at every pebble with deepest reverence and worship, because it is part of my vastness. We are glad that in this way you have been shown a very little of the glory of God. The glory of God is everywhere, stretching from the furthest reaches of the universes to the little grain of sand, one and the same thing, held in eternal love and timeless with life. Yes, of course, it would be good to attune to me if you work with stone. Reverence all life, emulate my patience, unfold the mysteries of God and even of pebbles. Do it as a learner of life, a revealer. Let your dominion be over yourself, and let your expanding consciousness see God's life in all things, for indeed it is, and as you have learned, in the most surprising things. The color and sparkle of a stone is wonderful, but more wonderful is consciousness, which is brought about and brings about these outer manifestations and grows cosmically. We are all part of one life, no higher or lower. Praise God forever in the vastness of all life. I want to carry on a little bit more about my contact with the mineral kingdom, because it's an area which I think we've got so much to learn. At least I certainly had. I think the next one that made an impression on me is when we borrowed a bulldozer here to flatten a bit of ground to which to put on the print shop. And I'd been away for the day, and I came back and I found that the chewing up that the bulldozer had done, and I felt very upset about it. I knew it was all wrong. And Ogilvy Crombie, our contact with the nature beings, phoned up from Edinburgh and said, "What have you done wrong? There's something going on." And so I asked my friend the landscape angel, and the landscape angel said, "Did you think of warning the plants that were going to be bulldozed? Did you think there might be beings who live in the surface of the earth that would be their home and you would be destroying their home? Did the person who drove the bulldozer think of doing it with love, and specifically attuning and becoming one with the machine?" And the answer to all those questions was no, we hadn't thought of those things. But we apologized, and because of our ignorance, we were forgiven. And the little nature beings that Ogilvy contacted came back. And I found that is our history, it seems, throughout the planet. We do things in ignorance, but that's all right if we do it in utter ignorance. But now, as we learn and become more knowing, which is our destiny, we cannot be forgiven as long as we know. And we're coming to the point where the planet is feeding us back on our ignorance, and we have to act in it. Just one more thing on the little bit on the mineral kingdom is when I went to California and I chose to live in an apartment in the last building in a road that went into a little valley in the Sierras, at least in the land range in the Bay Area, deserted little valley, which I of course tuned into the angels there. And for the first and only time that when I ever tuned in them, I felt a sense of them not being in that joyous realm in which they live. There was a sense of frustration. Why? Because of our treatment of the soil, in particular in North America, how we have come in and raped the land, paid no attention to the value of the land. And this in contrast with the previous treatment before the European came, this wonderful close contact with the North American Indian had with the land. So they were used to having sympathetic humans there. In Europe, for instance, man and nature have gone up very closely together. And you can see by the roads and the buildings and everything, how they're bonded together. And man has listened to nature throughout and has evolved things that take the land into consideration and try and keep it in good heart and have various ways of treating the soil, letting it lie fallow and that sort of thing. So it will be kept in good heart, which was not kept on in North America because there was so much land and they didn't feel it necessary. So and what it may not have, which I didn't know, and they may have known, is that the bulldozers came into that area the next year. So it's just made me realize how terribly ignorant we are and how much we can learn from the more native peoples who have this feeling for the land that we just haven't had.